Brandon Lewis from the Tennessee Conservative. Brandon, thanks for making some time to join the show. I do appreciate it. One of your reporters were denied entry into the Tennessee Capitol Hill press corps. Explain to me what happened and why you think it happened.
So we've yet to be denied getting into the press corps, although I expect that's going to happen by probably Wednesday. But what we did do is we reached out to Cameron Sexton and said, writing on behalf of our subscribers, we would like full access for Adelia Kirchner. We raised money from GOP officials, grassroots people, conservative primary voters all over the state to send her there. And it said, we are not looking to go through the press corps in any way, but are instead asking on behalf of GOP primary voters to allow us access, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to go through the press corps. There are TV stations that are not in the press corps that get access to the floor, access to the press briefings. You don't have to be a member of the press corps. And in the Constitution, I'm going to try to wrap this up as quick as I can, it says that the printing press shall be free to every person to examine the proceedings of the legislature, and that no law shall ever be made to restrain the right thereof, the free communication of thought and opinions, one of our invaluable rights, etc. And so we get a reply back from Cameron Sexton's office, and it says the longstanding practice of the Tennessee General Assembly is that the Capitol Press Corps is the body of independent legislature to see that there's no conflicts. And she said he cannot, or any member of the legislature, speak for the Capitol Press Corps. So essentially, Cameron says, okay, you need to go to the press corps to get access. It's the only conservative news publication on Capitol Hill so that GOP primary voters get at least one voice. He says you got to go through the press corps. And we know from the American Journalist study, only 3.4% of journalists identify as Republican. And do you think they're going to let a conservative organization in there when they've got a legacy media cabal? I doubt it. And then finally, I get back an email from Kim Crucy of the AP, who chairs the press corps, and here's what she says. As chair, I help facilitate these votes over email, but I do not and have never told the House or Senate speakers who should or should not be allowed on the floor or in press avail. So I forwarded it back to Cameron and said, okay, you're telling me that they control it. They're saying that they don't even tell you who goes out there. So I don't know who's lying, but someone is not representing the truth properly.
It's a bit fascinating. I mean, you guys are conservatives. We have a supermajority of conservatives, and it doesn't seem like they want you all around.
It's not a supermajority of conservatives. It's a supermajority of Republicans. When you look at where all the money comes from GOP leadership, it's like 90+% left-leaning corporations, and it's from outside the district. So the longer you're up there and the further you climb, the less you have to connect with your GOP primary voters back in the state, because they can just purchase your election influence for hundreds of thousands of dollars going into the next cycle. And so there's this huge conflict, Chris, between the corporations that run the media, the corporations that fund the campaigns of the GOP, and then what GOP primary voters want. That's one of the primary reasons we've seen nothing preventative done about illegal immigration in Tennessee for the last 4 years, and it's because the corporate interests don't want it.
So how do we fix it, Brandon?
Oh, good grief. I don't know, Chris. I mean, the guy should just say, you can stand in the room and ask some questions. I mean, that's what a conservative would do. And a conservative is not afraid of somebody else's viewpoint. I mean, they're not going to quail in fear if you say, hey, should we be passing a school voucher plan that costs $25,000 to give away a $7,000 scholarship? Is there a cheaper way we could do this for the Tennessee taxpayer? Like, I don't see why you wouldn't want someone asking those questions, unless you really don't want your GOP primary voters to know that the way you campaign and the way you govern might be different.
It's definitely interesting. What do you think plays out from this? Do you think that you guys are eventually going to be admitted in?
I don't know. He could continue to stonewall us. We're going to still be up there in the Capitol. We'll be locked out. What happens is when they do these pressers, Chris, if they decide to lock you out, which is what Sexton is trying to do, then you rely on the other news networks that are primarily liberal and whatever clip they take from the interview. And well, you don't know what all was said. You just know what few clips come out of the thing, and then you can't be on the floor to hear any of the conversations. And so this is just his way of thumbing his nose at our publication, because we've been highly critical of this huge conflict between campaign promises and legislation. And finally, it is my intention if we do not get full press access. I mean, we don't asking for any special privileges. Is I'm going to pull the 3 of 4 and 4 of 4 primary voters back in his district, Cameron Sexton district, and I'm going to start mailing and texting and calling them directly and ask them why the speaker is denying this access. And if there's one thing that gets a politician's attention, it's the fact that he might lose an upcoming election. And I don't want to have to do that at my own personal expense, but I'm willing to do it because GOP primary voters absolutely, positively deserve a voice, and Sexton is trying to keep them from having it.
It is a fascinating story, and I appreciate you taking some time to join us to talk about it. What are the biggest issues facing Tennessee in this next legislative session, in your opinion?
Number one is illegal immigration. You know, we've got some what I would call reactive bills being passed, like if you've already raped or murdered somebody, there's a consequence if you're illegal. Well, I don't like that, but we do have a preventative bill coming up through Gino Bulso, the Trump Act, and it redefines what a Tennessee resident is, and it excludes illegal alien. Right now, we spend $700 million educating illegal aliens at taxpayer expense while our schools are struggling. They're so bad, Bill Lee insists we have to jettison kids out of them.
Yeah, and you could argue it's at the kids' expense too.
Yeah, it's definitely at the kids' expense. I mean, I've talked to teachers all over the state of Tennessee who are like, but 50% of the kids in my room are speaking English as a second language.
Yep.
We can't separate them out. And not only are they speaking English as a second language, if you test them in their native language, they're at a kindergarten level, and here they are sitting in third grade. What do we do with them?
Yeah.
And you've got all other kinds of issues. But anyway, it redefines that, and it also cuts off welfare benefits, and it tries to prevent the wiring of money from illegal aliens from Tennessee back to their country of origin. And those three pieces alone would make a huge deterrent when illegal aliens are looking at where they want to settle. If Tennessee is the most inhospitable state, they will take their problems and their crime everywhere else. And I'll close on this. We report every week, Mr. Hand, and this is just the things we can get a hold of. I mean, Tennesseans are being raped, they're being murdered, they're being put into prostitution, they're being human trafficked, they're being attacked by machetes and pickaxes. And they're shooting each other. And they're shooting other Tennessee citizens not even involved in the Tennessee legislature for the last 4 years. Every time a preventative piece of legislation has been brought to committee, it has been killed by rhinos. And it's not a Democrat problem in Tennessee. It is a Republican problem. We need to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what Uncle Phil used to always say. We need to demagnetize the state. That sounds like that would be a great step in that direction.
You're absolutely correct. And, of course, school choice is going to be a big issue, but I did the math, and you can go back and watch that video and tell me if you disagree or not. But when I do the math, with 20,000 students, it is going to take, and with 5,000 rolling out a year, it's going to take $25,000 plus to give away a $7,000 scholarship. No funding is taken away from the failing school that the kid is fleeing from, and then it's going to take 200 years to roll out. It's only for less than 2% of Tennessee students. And so the thing I wish they would do, instead of promoting something as a universal option, which, I mean, you listen to the word universal, Chris. What do you think when you think universal? What does that spring to mind?
Everybody.
Everybody. But it's not everybody. It's a small group of people. It'll take 200 years to roll out without any population increase. That's just the math of it. And I know that they're going to spend a ton of money pushing it, and I want school choice. But I think a no strings attached tax rebate or credit would be better. It'd be cleaner, it'd be easier. But we'll see what happens with this legislation. It is quite interesting.
I love the school choice argument. I hate that it's positioned as left versus right, because I think the nuances are right versus right. I know Murphy, who's now on Afternoons, is looking to do a debate over the school choice bill. I'd love to see if you'd want to get in on that, or Tiffany Boyd and debate Sexton or Sapicki on the governor's school choice bill at some point down the road. Would you be interested in doing something like that?
If I can do it, I've got in the next 2 weeks, I put on an annual conference. I don't make any money running the Tennessee Conservative. I do it as a volunteer. And so I run a coaching organization, and our annual summit is 2 weeks away. If I can put it on my schedule, because I still got to feed the family, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, put it on the schedule, I'll absolutely do it.
Do you have Murphy's contact? Do you want me to get you in contact with Murphy?
I do, and a matter of fact, we've been texting this morning about this Cameron Sexton BS. Me and him talked for about 30 minutes on the phone this weekend. me explaining the situation, and then I forwarded him everything that Kim Crucy just sent us. And he asked Sexton directly via text message, hey, the press corps says you can grant floor access and you can grant this. Is that true or not? And so we're going to see what Sexton does. I mean, it's just crazy to me as a GOP majority leader, with us only having what I would consider one, maybe two conservative news outlets in the entire freaking state, that you wouldn't let one different viewpoint come into the room. And it's amazing. But it may prove to be true. And if it did, it would just reinforce what I've discovered the last 4 years. And that is that GOP leadership campaigns very conservatively, but when it comes time to legislate or actually run the government, they do it in almost just a slightly right of center fashion. And so I wish they'd just campaign the way they vote.
Interesting. Brandon Lewis from the Tennessee Conservative is on the line. Limited time, but real quick, what's the biggest story facing Tennesseans that nobody's paying attention to?
Oh, the biggest story that's facing Tennesseans I'll tell you what it is. I think it is. One of the biggest, obviously illegal immigration people keep up with, is corporate welfare. For example, we just gave woke Ford Motor Company, who wanted to get involved with the Georgia elections, who probably will immediately unionize upon coming into our state, $2 billion. They have lost now collectively, I think over the last 2 years, $6 billion in their electric vehicle division. We're giving all this money to the Tennessee Titans Stadium. And when you poll Tennesseans across the state, Mr. Hand, it is wildly unpopular to give millions and billions to millionaires and billionaires at the expense of Tennessee taxpayers and small business owners who never get jack nor squat from Bill Lee except shut down during COVID. And the other story I think is pretty big is lobbying. Right now, for example, we've got Bo Watson, who's a state senator, and he serves on the Finance Committee. Well, his wife is a lobbyist. And I've had members of the General Assembly constantly tell me, this is unethical, this is a conflict of interest. When she comes calling on me, I feel like I have to talk to her because if I don't, my stuff may never get through Bo Watson's committee. And when the corporations hand a lobbyist the money and then it goes into the Watson family bank account, I think that's a problem. I don't think we need to have lobbyists that are family members making money off lobbying and then putting it right back in the family bank account. Cameron Sexton says he wants to avoid conflicts of interest. Well, that seems like a much bigger conflict of interest than letting a conservative paper into the chamber to ask a few questions.
Yeah, I hear you, and I appreciate the time. Brandon Lewis of the Tennessee Conservative, where can we keep up with you online? You always have, breaking news at TennesseeConservativeNews.com, but where can we find you?
You can find us, I guess, also on Twitter. Just type in Tennessee Conservative. We have a podcast I do once a week to summarize the 7 big stories. But TennesseeConservativeNews.com, hit the subscribe button. We'll send you a little email. We don't spam people, but we send one email a day, and it usually has 13 stories or so, and most of them are all Tennessee-focused.
Hey, and I appreciate it, man. Like you said, I know you got a separate gig. This is a labor of love for you, and I appreciate the work that you do.
You're very kind, Mr. Hand. If I can ever help you, let me know.
Always. I appreciate the time. Brandon Lewis from the Tennessee Conservative on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.